You're in the room, everyone's laughing, someone tells a joke about you, and you laugh along. But inside something breaks. You feel your face burning, your heart racing, your hands sweating. It's not anger, it's fear. Fear they'll notice, fear they'll talk. You learn early, speaking too much, dangerous, dreaming too big, ridiculous, being different, unacceptable. So you mold yourself, wear the right clothes, say the expected words. Read what you really think, and it works. People accept you, approve of you, even praise you. But at night, alone, you don't recognize yourself. The mirror reflects a stranger, someone you created to survive, someone who isn't you. Napoleon Hill called this a ghost, the second of 6 fears that destroy lives, the fear of criticism, and it's killing you slowly. Because you didn't just abandon your dreams, you abandoned yourself, traded your voice for others' approval, and now you live imprisoned in a false version of who you are. But what if God allowed you to reach this point, exhausted from this performance, precisely so you'd finally understand? Their opinion was never the problem. It was you believing you needed it to exist. This has a name. Napoleon Hill discovered it almost a century ago and called it the fear of criticism, one of 6 ghosts that destroy human potential. You weren't born with it. It was planted by a father who ridiculed your dream, by a teacher who exposed you in front of the class, by friends who laughed at what you loved, by a society that punishes those who dare to be different. And gradually, you learn the deadly lesson. Being yourself is dangerous. Hill discovered something brutal. The fear of criticism doesn't protect you from rejection. It condemns you to it. Because you reject yourself before others can. You look in the mirror and see flaws, hear your voice and feel shame, have an idea and already imagine the laughter. Before any external criticism, you've already destroyed yourself internally. And the worst part, you don't even notice, because this fear disguises itself as prudence, as humility. I don't want to draw attention. I prefer not to risk it. Better stay quiet. But it's not wisdom, it's prison. Napoleon Hill studied thousands of successful people and discovered a pattern. They all faced devastating criticism, and they all made the same decision, move forward anyway, because they understood something liberating. Criticism doesn't reveal who you are, it reveals who the critic is. And more, it reveals you're alive, visible, real. You know why you're so afraid of others' judgment. Because at some point in life, someone taught you that your essence was wrong, that being yourself was shameful, and you believed it. But here's the truth no one told you. While you live in fear of being criticized, you're already being judged by yourself. Every single day, you criticize yourself for not being thin enough, for not being successful enough, for not having the life they post on social media. And that internal voice, it's crueler than any external critic. Napoleon Hill realized something profound. The fear of criticism is never about others. It's about you. It's about the war you wage against yourself. And as long as you fight your own essence, no external approval will save you, because you can please the entire world and still, alone in your room, feel like an imposter, a failure disguised as success. And it was precisely this paralyzing terror that brought you here, because God knew you needed to understand. Hell isn't being criticized by others. It's living, criticizing yourself and calling it life. You thought it was protection. It was prison. You thought it was prudence. It was cowardice disguised as wisdom. Because at some point, you made a silent pact with fear. If I don't expose myself, I won't get hurt. If I don't dream big, I won't disappoint anyone. If I'm invisible, I'll be safe. And for a while, it worked. Nobody criticized you. Nobody rejected you. Nobody saw you. But you also didn't live, didn't risk, didn't try, didn't dare to be who God called you to be. You traded freedom for acceptance, purpose for approval, authenticity for applause. and called it emotional intelligence. But it wasn't intelligence, it was fear dressed as strategy, control dressed as peace, death dressed as life. Napoleon Hill warned about this. The fear of criticism makes you believe you're protecting yourself, but actually you're destroying yourself, because every time you stay silent, a piece of who you are dies. You think you're avoiding pain, but you're creating a worse pain. The pain of reaching the end of life and realizing you never lived, that you spent decades playing a character you don't even recognize. How many times did you swallow your words? How many times did you keep your ideas to yourself? How many times did you pretend to agree when you disagreed? How many times did you betray yourself to avoid being betrayed by others? And the worst part, you convinced yourself this was self-love. I protect myself. I choose my battles. I don't need to prove anything to anyone. But it's not protection. It's surrender. It's not wisdom. It's survival disguised as strategy. Because here's the truth. You're not afraid of criticism. You're afraid of being seen, of being known, that they'll look at you and realize you're not perfect, that you make mistakes, that you fail, that you're human. And while you live hidden, thinking you're safe, life passes by, dreams die, opportunities slip away, and you grow old, trapped in a version of yourself that was never real. Napoleon Hill said something devastating. The fear of criticism robs initiative, destroys imagination, limits individuality, takes away self-control, and does damage in 1,000 different ways. It doesn't protect you, it destroys you. And you know because this. At night, when everything goes quiet, you feel it. The emptiness, the feeling of living a life that isn't yours. It wasn't others' criticism that imprisoned you. It was you believing you needed their approval to exist, that your essence needed external validation to have value, that being yourself was too great a risk. But God never asked you to be perfect. He asked you to be real. And while you choose the mask over the face, you're rejecting the very calling He placed in you, because you weren't created to please crowds. You were created for a specific mission that can only be fulfilled when you finally stop hiding and embrace who you really are. You feel it, don't you? That restlessness in your chest, that sense that there's more in you than the world can see. If you made it this far, it wasn't by chance. It was because something inside you is screaming for freedom. Click the button right now and subscribe. Because this channel isn't about empty motivation or pretty phrases. Here, every video reveals the truth. No one has the courage to tell you why you suffer, why you repeat the same patterns, and what God is trying to teach you through it. Psychology to understand your pain, faith to transform it into purpose. And then God speaks, not with thunder, not with visible miracles, but with a silent truth that cuts deeper than any human criticism. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. Proverbs 3:5-6. You read that and thought it was about faith, but it's about liberation. Because trusting God means stopping to trust others, opinions. It means stopping to seek in men what only He can give you. You don't need their approval. You need His direction. And while you live bent under the weight of others' judgment, God is trying to lift you up, to straighten you out. Napoleon Hill discovered this in another way. He realized the fear of criticism is born when you put the power of your life in the wrong hands. When you make others your judge, your God. But God never created you to live like this. He created you free, with purpose, with voice. And every time you stay silent out of fear, you're telling Him, I don't trust who you made me to be. I don't believe you gave me what I need. I need their validation more than yours. But listen to this. John 12:43 says, For they loved the glory of men more than the glory of God. This phrase isn't condemnation, it's diagnosis. It's God showing you where you've been placing your trust and revealing the price you're paying for it. Because when you live to please men, you lose the glory of God, not as punishment, but as natural consequence. You lose peace, lose purpose, lose direction. because you're following the wrong compass. God isn't asking you to be perfect. He's asking you to be His, that you trust Him more than you fear others, that you walk in His ways, even when the world criticizes. And here's the liberating promise. He will make your path straight. Not maybe, not if you deserve it. He will make them straight. It means God isn't waiting for you to get everything right. He's waiting for you to trust. And when you do that, He takes control. He corrects the course. You've been walking crooked because you're following crooked voices, crooked opinions, crooked expectations. And God is saying, acknowledge me, and I'll straighten everything. You know what that means? It means the fear of criticism isn't just a psychological problem. It's a spiritual problem. It's you putting creation in the Creator's place. And God, in His mercy, allowed you to hit rock bottom, exhausted from pleasing, broken from pretending, lost from following those who don't know the way, not to destroy you, but to redirect you, so you'd finally look up and ask, Lord, what do you want from me? And the answer is simple. He wants you real, you authentic, you free from the paralyzing terror of being judged by those who never created you. Because when you trust Him with all your heart, something changes. Others' opinions lose their power. Criticism loses its poison, and you finally understand you never needed their approval. You only needed His direction. And He's always been there, waiting for you to stop hiding, waiting for you to trust. God didn't take peace from you when He allowed them to be critical. He took you out of the illusion that peace would come from them, so you'd finally find it in Him. Now comes the practical part, because faith without action is illusion. And understanding fear without facing it is just theory that keeps you trapped. So listen carefully. First strategy, identify the voice you obey. You need to understand something urgent. Not all criticisms paralyze you. It's a specific voice, a voice you internalized long ago. It could be your father's voice saying you'd never be good enough, your mother saying you need to behave, the teacher who humiliated you in front of the class, or someone you loved who made you feel small. Napoleon Hill discovered that the fear of criticism has an origin, and as long as you don't name that origin, it will continue controlling you. So today, right now, you're going to do something liberating. You're going to write, grab a piece of paper, or open the notes on your phone and write this sentence. The voice that most paralyzes me is the voice of actor. Fill in the name. It can be someone alive or dead, someone close or distant. Doesn't matter. What matters is that you name it. Because when you give fear a name, it loses the power of anonymity. It stops being this invisible force haunting you and becomes something concrete you can face. After you write the name, also write, and I choose to no longer obey this voice. Not because that person was evil, but because their opinion of you was never the final truth. It was just their opinion, limited, human, flawed, and you've been living as if that voice were God, as if that person's judgment defined your worth. But it doesn't. It never did. Proverbs 3:5 tells you not to lean on your own understanding. You know why? Because the understanding you have of yourself was built by voices that weren't God's. And as long as you trust those voices, you'll walk crooked. So today you make a choice. You decide which voice you'll obey. The voice that diminishes you, or the voice that created you. The voice that paralyzes you, or the voice that frees you. And here's something powerful. When you identify the wrong voice, it becomes easier to recognize the right one. Because God doesn't speak with condemnation. He speaks with correction, yes, but always with love. God's voice never destroys you. It rebuilds you, never humiliates you, restores you. So next time you feel the fear of criticism rising, stop, breathe, and ask, whose voice is this? If it's not God's, don't obey it. Simple as that. It's not easy at first, but it's necessary, because you can't trust the Lord with all your heart if half your heart is still listening to voices He never authorized. You can't acknowledge God in all your ways if you're following paths others drew for you. And he can't make your path straight if you insist on walking the crooked paths they taught you. So today, you start unlearning, disobeying the wrong voices, deauthorizing the judges you placed in your life, and giving back to God the place that was always his. Write the name, declare your choice, and feel the first step of freedom, because when you stop obeying fear, you start obeying faith. And faith isn't the absence of criticism, it's the courage to walk even when it comes, because you finally understood that the only voice that matters already said who you are. Now, if you got distracted, come back here with me and pay attention to this, because this is the most important part. Second strategy, do one thing each day that scares you. Napoleon Hill studied this deeply. He discovered that the fear of criticism doesn't disappear with reflection. It disappears with confrontation, with deliberate action against it. So here's what you're going to do. Today, before you sleep, you'll choose one small action, something you've been avoiding out of fear of judgment. And tomorrow, you're going to do it. It doesn't have to be grand. It could be posting something you truly think on social media. It could be saying no to someone without justifying yourself. It could be wearing that outfit you love, but fear will draw attention. It could be raising your hand in a meeting and sharing your idea. It could be calling someone you admire and asking for help. It could be starting that project you postpone because you fear failing, or simply looking in the mirror and saying out loud, "I am enough." Sounds simple, but you know it's not. Because when you've spent years obeying fear, every act of courage feels like jumping into the abyss. And that's exactly why you need to jump. Because with each small action against fear, something dies inside you, not you, the false version of you, the persona built to please. And something is born, your true voice, your real essence, the you God always saw, but the world never knew. Here's the liberating truth. The more you act against fear, the weaker it gets. The more you expose yourself, the less power criticism has. Because you finally understand that surviving judgment doesn't kill you. In fact, it strengthens you. It teaches you that you're more resilient than you imagined, that others' opinions don't define you, and that God was always sustaining you, even when you thought you were alone. Napoleon Hill said something revolutionary. Action is the real antidote to fear. Not positive thinking, not empty affirmations. Action, because you can spend years praying for courage, but courage doesn't fall from heaven like a passive blessing. It's born when you act despite the fear, when you obey God more than you obey the terror. Proverbs 3:6 says, "In all your ways acknowledge him." You know what that means. It means God doesn't just want your thoughts, he wants your steps. Acknowledging God isn't just talking about him, it's walking with him. It's making decisions based on him, not on others. It's acting according to who he says you are, not according to who they say. And when you do that, something supernatural happens. He will make your paths straight. Not before you walk, but while you walk. You won't have all the answers before taking the first step. You won't feel 100% confident before acting, but you'll act anyway, and God will straighten the path while you walk. So today you make a new pact. Every day, one action against fear. It can be small, but it has to be real. And as you do this, observe. Observe how others' opinions lose strength, how criticism hurts less, how you start breathing deeper, sleeping better, smiling for real. Because you finally stopped living in the prison of others' approval and started living in the freedom of divine purpose. And that changes everything. So choose now. One small thing you've been avoiding. Write it down. Commit to it. And tomorrow, before any excuse arises, do it. Don't overthink. Don't analyze. Just act. Because faith without works is dead, remember? And courage without action is just fantasy that keeps you trapped. But when you act, when you take that step trembling with fear but determined, God acts with you. And suddenly you realize that you were never alone, that he was always straightening your paths, waiting for you to trust him enough to walk. And when you finally walk, fear doesn't disappear, but you discover you're much bigger than it. because God was always bigger than any voice that tried to diminish you. You're in the room. Everyone's laughing. Someone tells a joke about you. But this time, something is different. You don't laugh along trying to hide the pain. You don't feel your face burning with shame. You just breathe and realize something revolutionary. Their opinion doesn't define you anymore. Not because you became arrogant, but because you finally understood where your value comes from. And it's not from them. Napoleon Hill was right. The fear of criticism was a ghost. Not because criticism didn't exist, but because the power you gave it was illusion. You spent years running from something that could never destroy you unless you allowed it, and you allowed it until today. But today you chose differently. You named the voice that controlled you. You acted against the fear that paralyzed you and discovered that on the other side of criticism there was no death, there was life, your life, the real one. The one God always wanted you to live. Proverbs 3:5-6 wasn't just a pretty verse. It was a map of liberation. Trusting the Lord with all your heart meant stopping to trust the wrong voices. Acknowledging Him in all your ways meant walking with Him, not with them. And the promise, He would make your path straight, not make you perfect in the world's eyes, but make you free in His eyes. And when you're free, something changes. Criticisms keep coming, but they don't stick anymore. Don't penetrate anymore, because you finally understood that John 12:43 was a warning, not a sentence. They loved the glory of men more than the glory of God, and you had lived like that for too long, but not anymore. Because today you chose God's glory, and it doesn't come with applause, it comes with peace. The peace of knowing who you are, the peace of not needing to prove anything, the peace of being able to fail without destroying yourself, the peace of being seen, known, and still loved. You were 7 years old when you learned that being yourself was dangerous. Now you understand that hiding who you are was even more deadly, because you weren't protecting yourself, you were losing yourself. And God allowed you to reach this point, exhausted from pretending, broken from pleasing, empty from living a life that was never yours, not to punish you, but to free you so you'd finally drop the mask and embrace the face. Today, when you look in the mirror, you won't see a stranger anymore. You'll see someone who's learning to be real, imperfect, yes, but true. And that is more valuable than any approval, because you finally stopped seeking in others what only God could give: value, direction, purpose. And He has been straightening your paths ever since. You don't need to fear criticism anymore, not because it won't come, but because you discovered you're much bigger than it, that God is much bigger than it. And when you walk with Him, acknowledging Him in all your ways, something supernatural happens. The wrong voices lose their volume, the right voice becomes clearer, and you finally understand you were always free. You just needed to choose, and today you chose not their approval, but His freedom, and that changes everything. Because when you live for God's glory, you stop dying for men's glory and finally start living for real. You're in the room, everyone's laughing, someone tells a joke about you, and you smile, not because you agreed, but because you finally understood they never had the power you gave them, and God always had the love you were looking for in them. If this message made sense to you, subscribe to our channel. Here, every story reveals why you suffer and what God is teaching you through it. Psychology to understand yourself, spirituality to understand the why of it all. And for you who made it to the end of this video, leave a comment saying, "I choose freedom," because when you declare this, something changes. It's not superstition, it's commitment. It's you telling the universe, God, and yourself that you won't live trapped anymore. And God honors those who have the courage to declare freedom.